I'm Brandon with Porch Windows Direct, and I'm here to show you how to install our extend porch windows where we mull two windows together. We can combine 2 and 3 windows together with our built-in aluminum mullion so that you don't have to add another wood post into a larger opening. On this opening here, a couple of things that we want to look for first is that on the exterior face, everything is flat, all 4 sides, and in the same plane. Our extend windows have a 1-inch flange that screws onto the outside face of this opening. So top, bottom, left, and right all need to be flat and in the same plane for those flanges to attach onto. We also need to make sure that we have clearance into the opening. Our extend windows project into the opening 2 inches from the flange in, so we can't have anything in the way 2 inches from the face of the opening. Now the first window has a flange on the top, bottom, and on one side there is the mullion post that the other window is going to attach onto. So we're going to take the first window and put it in, and then the second window is going to go in alongside of it, and its flange is going to screw into the mullion that's on the side of window number 1. So we take our first window and get that set up in the opening. We want to make sure that we get this one all the way over to the side. And here is the part that looks different from everything else. Instead of a flange, we have this mullion post here that window number 2 is going to attach onto. I want to get this window tacked into place as far over to the side so I can put the next one in and then double check them to make sure that they're centered equally in the opening. So I'm checking that I'm tight against that side, and then I'm going to get 1 screw into the top here just to hold that in place. Now, our extend windows come with a painted flathead screw so that if you decide that you wanted to put exterior trim siding over top of the window flanges and cover up the screw heads, you can do that without any trouble at all. We also are going to have some painted hex head screws that we use down that mullion that lock the 2 windows together. So I have window number 1 tacked into place. We're going to take window number 2 and get that in. Now that the top needs to slip in and line up with the other one. Now this is where having a second person might make this a little easier. So I got the top in, it's slipping, the flange is going to screw into that mullion post, and along the top you can see there's a channel where the screen spline comes together. I want to make those 2 match up in a nice straight line, so that's really important to get that nice clean line as those 2 match up. So before I screw those together, I want to make sure that that line of screen spline along the top matches up. And then I'm going to use the painted hex head screws to go through the window flange of window number 2 into that mullion post. Those hex head screws are self-tapping. So again, the head is painted. The tip is a self-tapping so that that can go right into the aluminum mullion without having to be pre-drilled. But first I'm just gonna get a couple of screws into the cedar to make sure that these stay in line where I want them to be before I attach them together. So I'm gonna get another screw in the top corner here, and I'm going to go onto the inside and just double check that I'm centered in this opening before I get too far ahead of myself. I'm checking that I have the same reveal on both sides, top and bottom, that I'm centered in the opening. So we typically take a 1/4 inch deduction from an opening. So in theory, I should have an 1/8 inch gap on this side and an 1/8 inch gap on this side, top and bottom. I appear to be centered. I'm also looking for, are the frames bowing out at all in the middle, kind of creating an hourglass shape? If those frames were bowing out in the middle, when I lift these window panels up into the center, they would not stay in place. I have the right tension set because I can see that these windows are staying in place. I can also see that my reveal all the way up and down the frame is that same 1/8 inch gap. If this frame were bowing out and maybe less than an 1/8 inch gap, or bowed out and pushing up against the wood post, when I lift those window panels into the middle, they would drop down because there wasn't enough tension. I would solve that by putting a couple of shims in here to push this frame in the center before I screw it in back on the outside. So because I'm happy with the location, I'm perfectly centered in the opening, I know that my frames are both straight and parallel to each other, I'm gonna get a couple more screws into this top section here to make sure that everything stays where I want it. So I'm using the wood screws all around the perimeter into the cedar posts. Now these the window flanges on the left and right side are all going to be pre-drilled when they come to you. Those couple of screws that I put through the flange in the top and these couple that I'm going to put through the flange at the bottom are not going to be pre-drilled, so you just want to use an 1/8 inch drill bit to get those drilled. It's easier than trying to punch these through the aluminum. Now that I have all of the perimeter attached, I'm going to go back on the inside one more time and just double check that I have the proper tension and alignment before I finish off by adding the self-tapping hex head screws through the mullion. Checking my gap on each side, the bottom, top, and middle. I have an 1/8 inch reveal all around. Very happy with that. When I close the windows, I have just the right tension. They stay put in the middle. Looking good. Now I'm going to switch to the 1/4-inch driver. And then use these painted hex head screws to screw through the mullion. And with these, I'm going to line them up with the window sashes just so I have a consistent pattern. If you have multiple windows that have mullions, make them the same and just do one on the bottom and then at these points of meeting of the window sashes and then one final at the top. And that locks these together with one final screw at the top. And now we've installed a double window unit into one large opening. If you had 3 in an even larger opening, we would just repeat the process by adding one more along the side of it.